Hi, guys. My name is Andrew Banara, and this is On the Reel, a filmmaking podcast by VFS. And I'm here with Lauren Faust, an intimacy coordinator. How's it going, Lauren?
It's going. I'm having a great day. Excited to be here.
How's your day? How's your day?
It was good. I had classes today.
Nice.
So it was a lot, but...
It's interesting because you told me you have classes, but you're kind of the teacher of intimacy coordinating, right? Like you kind of teach your teachers how to do intimacy coordinating.
So a lot of my professors haven't had the experience of working with an intimacy coordinator, or they have, but not at our school level.
Okay.
And so in a lot of classes, they're asking me what my job is and like what that entails. Like today, I took business and legal and film. And I walked up at the end of the class and I was talking to the professor and I was like, hey, I'm an intimacy coordinator. I'm taking this class because I'd love to learn more about communicating with the legal team as well as the different contracts. And we fill out writers as intimacy coordinators, and I want to get more comfortable with that, as well as the lingo that is used and how to better communicate and understand that whole side of my job. And he goes, yeah, so what does an intimacy coordinator do? What does that entail? So I ended up explaining it to him, and he was like, yeah, I'd love to chat.
I mean, that's a good segue. So what is intimacy coordination?
Yeah, so intimacy coordinating is consent-based work, and it's basically taking the story and the intimate moments of the story and bringing the director's vision to life within the boundaries of the actors and their basic needs as humans and in a professional setting, right? Because it is a job, you are at work. So that's what I do.
How do you navigate the emotional aspect with that professionalism? Like how do you navigate the you don't want to cross boundaries, cross that line, to get what I mean? Especially with like actors wanting to maybe even not have an intimacy coordinator or any of that sort.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Thanks, Andrew. I think it's really about giving people the space to communicate their boundaries and having different like techniques and the way you reframe. Because actors are trained specific ways. And so being able to talk about the way they've been trained, as well as come up with new techniques and different things they can add to their toolbox to help them advocate for themselves and talk about boundaries. When boundaries have been crossed as well, how to communicate with scene partners or directors or whoever it might be efficiently, and to be able to like chat about that and have a space where it's okay to chat about that is a way in which you can create space between the reality and the acting.
That's great. And what got you into personally intimacy coordination?
Yeah, I used to be an actor. Crazy.
Please do tell more. Tell me more.
So I found myself being typecasted quite often.
Okay.
And I was either the girl being broken up with and being asked to do some intimacy within those scenes and those roles, or I was the cheerleader, that stereotype, if you will. And I found myself feeling really unprepared for those intimate moments. And so I was like, well, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? So I started looking into it, and intimacy coordinating was on the rise, right? It's starting to become more well-known and accepted and used within the film industry, which is great.
Yeah.
And so I started searching for, well, how can I get into this?
So it kind of chose you, like that.
I like to think so, yeah.
That's interesting.
I love it. I'm fully committed, so.
What are some misconceptions about intimacy coordination?
I love this question. I think a huge common misconception is that intimacy coordinators are there to support actors. And while that is true, I am there to support actors, and that is a byproduct of my work. I'm there to support everybody and the production. My job is not to just be there for the actors, but to also be there for the director or the DP or whoever it might be, anyone who has questions or needs support.
So you're like the support of the overall production.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there to support the production. And by supporting actors, I'm supporting the production. But like my goal, just like everyone else's, is to create whatever show we're working on and put our best work forth and get the best story, you know?
Love that. I love that so much. And how do you make actors feel safe on set?
This is a hard question. You can't really make anyone feel anything, right? I can't make you feel comfortable. I can come to you with tools and techniques that might help foster an environment in which you would feel more comfortable, and that's the goal. But at the end of the day, I can't make anyone feel anything. And there are plenty of times where you're going to be uncomfortable, and that's totally okay, right?
I guess it's like, it's not necessarily the exception of making someone feel a certain way, but just allowing them to feel what they feel.
Exactly, and creating space for that and acknowledging it and saying, I'm here. I have all these different things and techniques, practices, tools, fun little things that we can pull out of our toolbox.
What's like a particular tool that you like to use?
Yeah, I think a big thing is listening.
Okay.
And like whether that be someone talking about a concern they have or an experience they've had, but just like making people feel valued and like they are heard and they have someone in their corner is a great way to help people feel supported.
That's such like an empathetic, like that's so cool that you're able to just resonate with you know, emotionally with the actor. And I'm sure you kind of use that, your own experience.
Totally.
And you are able to almost put yourself in the position of the actor, which you literally were. But that's so cool. That is so cool. What's the first step to creating a consent-forward set?
I think the first step people can take in creating a consent-forward set is having conversations about consent. In the film industry, right, actors specifically are taught yes and, right, within improv and stuff like that. So I think like opening the space and even like reframing like how you ask questions and allowing people to take a second and think about their response. I know a big thing right now is having open-ended questions. So instead of asking, if you're working with a scene partner, is it okay if I put my hand on your shoulder? The implied answer is in that question. Is it okay? But you could reframe that with, how do you feel about me putting my hand on your shoulder?
That's it.
And then it like gives a person a moment to think, well, how do I feel? Yeah.
It's like it's taking accountability and having extra steps so everyone in the room is comfortable.
Yeah, and giving space.
Can you share a success story from work on set?
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite success stories happens to be on the show I worked on with you.
Thank you.
But I think what was such a success about Letters to You, shameless, was that you guys hadn't worked with an intimacy coordinator.
It was the first time?
Before. I hadn't ever worked with you guys before, and I mean, that was my first non-ASU work that I had worked on, so non-school work, and we were working with someone who had never acted before.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And we were able to all come together and collaborate, and there are some really beautiful shots and
Shout out to Nick.
intimate moments in that, and I love how they feel so realistic. That's the story that I want to tell. The stories I want to tell are those realistic little intimate moments, you know? I feel like a lot of things for films are
Kind of glorified.
yeah. So I want to show those awkward moments, right? And like just like the little moments of intimacy, not just physical but also emotionally. And I think we really got to do that
I agree.
in that show, and not show, production. And I really, really love that.
Yeah, that was a good one. How did you feel working with someone who was unexperienced? Like, we had our first time actor, Clara.
Yeah.
How did you approach that? What was like your singular thought of like, okay, for sure this needs to happen, or what was that like?
Yeah, I think the first thing that went through my head was obviously she didn't know any of you guys either. And so when we had our initial phone call, because Anthony gave her my phone number, and she wanted to talk through things with me, and I chatted with her just about some like protocol we could have, like check-ins and stuff like that. And we did that throughout the film, and she had a blast, and everyone knew that she had never acted, as well as she didn't know you guys, and everyone really allowed the space for like people to have their feelings and to feel comfortable and learn. It was a great environment for learning, and everyone gave grace and came with the understanding that we are all figuring things out as well. I mean, you guys hadn't worked with an intimacy coordinator. I hadn't worked with you guys. Like,
It was very fresh for everyone.
yeah, it was super fresh. And so we were all able to like allow space for learning and also enjoying. Because being at her first time, I wanted her to have fun.
Yeah. That's true. It's true. What's one tool or technique you use to ensure comfort for actors?
I think this goes back to that one question. I can't ensure for anything like that. But I think a huge thing is communication. I'll go back to that.
Communication.
And so
I guess the big tool is
yes.
communication.
So being able to communicate what is on the schedule for the day and what the process is going to be like for filming those, and like placeholders and tap-ins and all the different tools that we use to kind of create a framework around the intimate scenes so that we have consent-based practices and work going on.
So I remember when we first talked about intimacy coordination, and I remember you told me like there's specific non-aggressive words or
Oh, yes, deloaded language.
deloaded language. Let's dive into that because that's the first time I've ever heard about that.
Yeah.
So what is deloaded language?
So, deloaded language is going to be non-violent, non-sexual language. And so I use this when referring to different parts of the body or moments in a scene. I don't ever want to use sexualized and violent language. I want to take those emotions and feelings out of it when I'm communicating about it, which could help create a space for people would feel more comfortable being put in those positions to be asked to replicate those moments. As well as I think when you are working with people, like you don't know what their lived experiences are, and some words can be activating emotionally.
Like trigger, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think by using non-sexual, non-violent, deloaded language.
So could you give me some like examples of deloaded language?
Yeah, so like for parts of the body, right? You have front pelvis. You can say butt, upper chest, side of the neck, front of the neck, and then
That's interesting. Yeah. It's almost like a scientific using more direct.
Exactly, and to be very clear about what part of the body you're communicating about, and like different moments, to be very clear about what people are acting out in a way that doesn't, well, you can't ever say it won't, but that hopefully doesn't activate someone.
That's interesting. So it's basically like, I think we've already said this, but it is kind of interesting to think about. It is intimacy coordination feels like it is the job to over communicate every little detail when it comes to intimacy and details. It's like a very detail oriented.
I would say it's very detail oriented, but you have to be careful with over communicating because you don't want to stress someone out or overstimulate them.
I can understand that, because you don't want to direct your actors too much because then they just think about it constantly.
And there's totally ways within consent-based work in which you can improvise things, right? You just have some set parameters and boundaries around that, right?
We spoke about, because I find it fascinating how you were able to tell me that sometimes making a scene more passionate is like a meticulous, it can be as meticulous as just more mouth.
Yeah,
To get breath work. So like, can you go into more detail about how you can make something look more passionate or intimate without having to actually tell the actors like be more passionate?
Yeah, I think that is a case by case basis. So it it depends on your actors and the moment in the scene. But I think a huge thing is like what humans do day to day and what intimacy is for different humans, right? Is not always what reads for the camera. So it's finding different techniques and stuff to make things read for the camera, because at the end of the day, we're doing it for the camera, right? And so what feels good to someone on a day-to-day basis and what they know to be intimacy, right? Or intimate moments physically, isn't always what looks good.
Yeah.
So you're also tweaking things in that sense.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. I love that so much. And what's your preparation look like?
Oh, well, if we started from the very beginning, typically I get a text message and then I set up a meeting with the director, and kind of that's after hopefully I've gotten to read the script, not always. And we discuss kind of what their vision is and what they would like to see. And then I get to check with the actors and hear them out on any concerns or wishes or thoughts, anything really, that they have on the scenes. And then typically I have an entire breakdown of the script with all the intimate moments that are explicitly written in the script or that I've discussed with the director.
Sides.
Yeah, kind of. And then I start brainstorming how that could possibly look. Granted, I don't know the blocking yet or anything. I just like to have some ideas in my head. And then we might have a couple rehearsals. May not, just depends.
I like the idea when we were working together. I liked the, not strictness, but I did appreciate the commitment of, before we did the intimacy coordination rehearsals, you had to kind of express to the actors exactly what we were doing before, Can you get into more detail of how that works for you?
Yeah, I think communication, right?
And it's all about communication.
It is all about communication. I think communicating what part of the scene we're going to be working, and also giving actors a second to tap in, if you will, and center themselves, right? And the fact that you allowed me to do that was lovely, because that is a blessing. But I think that just helps everyone frame their brain on, okay, well, this is what I'm going to be working. This is the choreography we're doing. This is my moment before, right? And if we are learning choreography, these are the boundaries that I need to be aware of with my scene partner or within the scene, whatever it might be. I think that allows people the space to regroup before you start.
And what other resources do you use, for intimacy coordination?
Yeah, so I have a lot of great resources, actually, I think. Might be a little biased. I have a lot of great mentors.
Okay.
And they're all lovely. And I could text them the drop of the dime, and they would answer any questions. I'm also in a couple different Facebook groups.
That's cool.
Yes. There's a big community sense within the IC world.
That's really cool.
And so if you ever have any questions and you're in those groups, you can type it in and you'll have 5 responses.
That is actually really cool. So you use Facebook groups as a resource for intimacy coordination?
Facebook groups, and then I'm a part of a couple cohorts.
Okay.
Which is really nice too.
Have you ever considered or have you ever seen a YouTube channel or?
Yeah, there's actually, I'm trying to remember her name. She's on TikTok.
Okay.
She posts quite a bit, and that was really helpful to me. And then I follow a lot of intimacy coordinators on all my social medias, and a lot of them will post days on set or what's in my IC toolkit.
Let's get into that. Well, I'll let you finish your thought, but let's get into that.
But stuff like that. So there is a lot. I feel like I personally surround myself with it. Because there's not much at ASU, right? Besides my two mentors that I do go to, I'm hungry for it. So I'm constantly seeking it out in my day-to-day life and the different avenues in which I spend my time.
So, and I remember this, which was really cool. You had mentioned an IC set, or can you get into what that is? A toolkit, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so in my IC kit, it really depends on the production I'm working on. But I have different things in there that I call tools that can be used on a day-to-day basis on set. And it ranges from KT tape, which is an adhesive tape safe for the skin in all different skin colors, to mints and gum, right? So when I'm getting ready for a production, I will pack my toolkit with different things that will be useful during those scenes, and then a couple extra things just because you never know what's going to get tossed at you.
Can you kind of dive into what possibly you would? Because I remember you had mentioned like a yoga mat,
Yes,
and
I did have a yoga mat with me, and we did end up using it. So we used the yoga mat as a protective barrier. There was a scene where both of the characters were lying down in bed. And so we put that yoga mat in between them as a barrier to...
So it was like a de-escalation? Or...
Yeah, and like, it really is just a barrier, right? So it just creates a little bit of space.
I love even the way you describe your job. You're so gentle with that. You're very soft, and it's indicative of how you approach.
Yeah.
And I think you're perfect for icing. I think it's like you are for sure someone who cares about this and handles it very well, and there's almost a grace to it, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm an ugly cracker. I can't be doing that.
So when you describe intimacy coordination, like what you said about your family, like what would you think, how would you describe it in like the lowest form of definition?
Yeah. When I told my dad I wanted to be an intimacy coordinator, and he said, "What's that?" I said, Dad, they're the people on set who specialize in consent-based work and are there to support all the intimate moments, whether that be a hand touch or a look, all the way down to the most involved and activated forms of intimacy. And then we started watching a couple different films, and he was like, wow, I didn't even realize how many moments are actually in there, and I can see how that would be so beneficial to so many different people on set. And I started going to workshops, and I started coming back with all these fun stories, and started getting to work on projects, and they've seen some of my work now, and they're in full support.
How was your journey starting intimacy coordination? How was that like?
I took a class at ASU, and I loved it. I loved it so much because it's a creative. It's art as well as I'm very passionate about making people around me feel good, or at least like someone said something to me and it has stuck with me for life, and it is people won't remember what you say to them, but they'll remember how you make them feel. And
It's really profound,
isn't that?
Yeah.
And I want to make people feel good, and I love film. And I love the people who love film. And I love the collaboration process and everyone coming together to create stories. And I love telling stories. I love telling realistic stories and like the little moments that people don't think about. And so I get to do that in intimacy coordinating. And so once I started taking that class, which I was so excited to be offered, especially because I had already been doing research and stuff. I got bit by the bug. And so I started outsourcing and looking at different organizations. So I've taken trainings with a couple different organizations, which has been super cool and really helped me connect with different people within the industry, because you are a department of one normally. So it can be a little lonely, but it's nice because there is such a community, like I said. So you have all these people to lean on, even if they're not like there. They're there with you in spirit, and they're moral support when you need them.
I like that. And I like the fact that even just like the community of the Facebook forums and all this stuff, that's crazy. Do you know any other intimacy coordinators like around here in Phoenix?
Yeah, I know a couple, besides my professors.
Okay.
But there's even less here than there are in
Like in
California
California.
or Atlanta, right? Or Vancouver, all those big film hubs. And intimacy coordinators are in film, and then intimacy directors are in theater. So
Okay.
yeah, so
They're the same job but different title, or
it's similar jobs. The rehearsal process and like the work you do for theater is very different. You have more time, right? You're workshopping things, you're putting things together. You have a lot of time to get to work with the cast. And then they're running it multiple times. To where with film, everything is
it's so
super concise.
yeah.
So you have to be really good at time management, very effective with your communication. You may not get a bunch of times to run things before they're shooting. And also, like once it's shot, and you can't control how it gets edited or what shot people use or anything like that, right?
You kind of have to let it go at some point.
Well, I think it's at the end of the day, you're there to support the production, and you're there to support the vision and the actors, and like support everybody, right? So it's you're just supporting in different ways. That's how I would say it.
It's like your ideal project to work on.
I would love, this is like my ideal project. I want to tell stories for the female gaze.
Okay. How does that look like?
I feel like a lot of intimate moments in film are either, I'm looking for the word.
Male gaze, yeah, male oriented.
There's a lot for the male gaze, but then also there's a lot that's like overdone, if that makes sense, or glamorized and glorified. I want to show realistic, intimate moments. And I would love to also do a lot for the female gaze, being a female.
Yeah, that's cool.
As well as like, there's so much like awkwardness within intimacy as well, right? And I would love to show that.
There's like a nuance to
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Or even a lot of people get their sex education from film. And so I think it's really important.
What would you tell the person that wants to be an aspiring intimacy coordinator? Like, what do you tell the people that want to get into it? What's your advice?
Reach out.
Okay.
I think people are scared to ask questions and like ask people, hey, like, I'm really interested in doing this. Is there any way you could help me get into it? Or what are some books I should read? You know, like I really struggled getting pointed in the right direction, and then I found the class. Not every school is going to have that class. Not everyone is going to be at a college, right, when they decide they want to do this. So I think not being afraid to reach out and try to join those Facebook groups. Or like when I first went to one of the workshops, I went to a workshop in LA. I was so scared, right? I'm 22 now. I was 21 when I did it. I was one of the youngest people there. I knew nobody there. I'm not from LA, so that was a really scary thing. But I learned so much, and I gained so many connections just by being there for 3 days.
That's cool.
So put yourself out there and commit.
Put yourself out there and commit.
Yeah, sound like a dad tell their kid to.
You're just like fucking ready, dude.
No, literally, it's just a ball.
Lauren Faust,
Yeah,
intimacy coordinator.
I see.
I see. Cool.
Thank you.